Hello and welcome back to Small Talk. We've got a great episode ahead as we speak with a duo from Central College. I'm your host, Katie Mucci. Each week on this show, we highlight the past and present of Division III, with both current and former student athletes joining to talk about their experiences, their favorite on-campus spots, the craziest road trip stories, and more. This week, we've got Franie Burnett, a current member of the softball team, and Laura Olson, a former member of the squad. We talk about the program's close relationship with alumni, the time the team had to help flip pancakes, why they love Division III, and more. Thanks for joining this week. Now it's time for some small talk.
Hi, I'm Franie Burnett. I'm a current member of the softball team here at Central College.
Hi, I am Laura Olson. When I played at Central, I was Laura Bach, and I am a 30-year out alumni. I graduated in 93. I am currently a high school teacher and have been doing that for 26 years, and I teach in the sciences, so all the life sciences, and I have been coaching as well 25 plus years.
Thank you both for hopping on here today. I'm excited to have you and chat some Central softball. We are at the very beginning of the season. Your season starts this weekend for games, at least. So excited to get you on here, and I appreciate you taking time when I know you are very busy getting prepped for it, Franie. So first thing we'll chat about is just campus life. Kind of see what's changed. You said it's been 30 years since you graduated, so I'm sure plenty has changed around campus in the area. So Frannie, I'll have you kick this one off and just tell us, what are kind of the spots where you and your teammates hang out? What are some favorite local places, restaurants, coffee shops, whatever? And then Laura, if you want to follow up and just let us know, were any of those there when you were there? Did you guys go to the same places? Or if not, what were your spots? So Frannie, you can start it.
Thanks. So honestly, there isn't like a specific spot that we kind of have designated, I guess, for our team. We do a lot of team activities, and those are kind of all over campus. I will say like some of the coffee spots that I know a lot of people love is Smoky Row because we can do so much homework there. Another place is George's. George's the pizza is so amazing. I don't know how long that's been around, but George's is definitely one of the best pizza places I've probably ever had. But yeah, there's really not a specific place I would say that we like to designate as a spot. There are a lot of times where like upperclassmen will have they live in either a house or they live on in the pods, and so we will usually hang out there quite a bit, especially once we're in the season and we're kind of together all the time. So yeah.
And I would have to agree with Frannie with George's. So we definitely went to George's. It was a favorite. We would go there before games. We would go there after games. Interesting thing, there were no coffee shops when we were there, so Smoky Row was not there. Pella was very different in the 90s, and we basically had George's. We had Bredo that we would go to. There was a Hardee's that was there, and McDonald's was way too far from campus, so we never went there. And then everything that's on the other side, the Arby's and the Culver's and all that was not there at all. So it was pretty much George's and Queef's that we, Central Food Service, that we went to. We did the movie theater. So the movie theater is also different than it was back then. There was one movie that played every week, and as a student, you bought a pass, and that pass allowed you to go to the movie free every single week. So George's was there. And then, like Frannie said, with our upperclassmen, whoever lived in the houses, the pods weren't there at the time, but whoever lived in the houses, that's where we hung out, and just kind of kicked back there. So
That's awesome. I love that. I like when there's been a place that's kind of a staple and it's been around for that long. So very, very cool there. And Laura, for you, you're not there. Obviously, you graduated. You're off in the working world and everything. But do you get back often or every year or anything for some games?
I get back very frequently. Something you might not know is that my daughter actually ended up playing at Central as well. She is a 19 grad. And so I was there quite a bit. And even since I graduated, I have followed the team very, very closely. But then between 2015 and 2019, when Kylie was playing there, I got back quite a bit. So a lot of the places Frannie was talking about, I love now. So I love going to Smoky Row and all of that kind of stuff too. So it's been very neat to see how Pella has changed in that 30 years, and also how Central has changed, and actually how the team has changed, the team dynamics. There's a lot of things that are the same, but there's a lot of things that have evolved, and I think evolved for the better.
That's awesome. I love that you got to go back, and that's so fun that your daughter decided to go play for your program. I bet that was nice for you.
I was secretly jumping up and down inside when that happened. So yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. We've had some other parents on this where the parent is the former student athlete and the kid is the current, and they're always like, I wanted them to go there, but I wanted to let them have their own choice. So it's probably a bit sweeter when they get their own choice and they still choose it.
It is. I actually made her go look at some other colleges first, because she basically came with me all the time and
Yeah.
said that that's where she was going to go. But I'm like, nope, you got to go visit somewhere else. And then she's like, I'm going to Central. I'm like, yes.
Okay, good, great. That's awesome. So now let's think about time off campus. So traveling, and before we got into the interview, I was talking to Frannie a little bit about their schedule for this year, but let's talk about the travel just situation. So Laura, I'll have you start this one off, but one thing that's been interesting is talking about the differences in travel equipment or travel vehicles. So what was travel like for you when you were on the team?
Interesting. This is one of the things that I think has changed for the better. When we used to travel, we did not take spring trips to Florida. We did not take spring trips to Arizona. So we went to Joplin, Missouri, and Pittsburgh, Kansas. But we got to drive ourselves in vans. So we had these three white vans, and players actually got to drive, and sometimes coach got to drive, and that was always scary when that happened. But that's usually how we traveled around. And then my junior and senior year, we got our first bus, and so we got our first bus driver, and kind of traveled more in what we would call Slippy, or the bus at that point. But yeah, that has definitely changed, where we would have to give our licenses to the transportation people, and then we just got to drive the vans, and that was crazy.
So you said it was scary when coach drove. Were there any teammates that you were like, you know what, we're not going to let you have the wheel today?
No, but we did try to entice some teammates when coaches were sleeping to go maybe a little faster than the speed limit.
That's fair.
Yeah, so.
I completely understand that one. So Frannie, we know it's a bit different now for you. I'm sure you're in buses, maybe coach buses with a charger, Wi-Fi. What's it like for you guys these days?
Well, that response that you had, Laura, kind of just blew my mind. I can't imagine driving our, not that like this sounds crazy, but I can't imagine us driving to our destination in separate vans, because like I've always we still have Slippy, so I've always been used to having a bus driver, and then we'll take Slippy to just about everywhere. And we have had the luxury of getting a charter every once in a while. But we do, since like you said, like we do go to Arizona, we went to Florida once. And we do get to fly there. I can't imagine driving that long in a van. And it's funny to me that you actually got to drive it, because like I can't imagine coach being okay with any of us actually taking the wheel and driving all the way to wherever the destination is. But that's very different from what I have now, because like I really can't imagine any of my teammates driving a van with coaches in it. Like that kind of blows my mind a little bit.
So it's kind of like, Frannie, when you guys go to Arizona and you have all your different vans. It's kind of like that was our every single game that we went to, or every single, like when we went to Pittsburgh and things like that. Coaches would actually like sleep, and we actually preferred it when coach didn't drive, because coach has a tendency to hit mailboxes and get lost. Even when we went to William Penn, which was my very first year, my freshman year, our very first game was against William Penn, and they were in our conference at that time. And I know you got the JV plays William Penn right now. But coach got lost on the way to the field, and we were late for warm-ups. And my pitcher at the time had to pitch like a really long time in order to warm up. And it was so frantic. And I remember looking at Larry and I'm like, Larry, are all the games like this? And he's like, no, because normally coach doesn't drive.
Wow,
Oh, no.
that's actually crazy to hear that. I'm gonna have to bring that up to him at some point this season, see what he says.
Ask him about the mailbox in Simpson. That's the
Okay.
mailbox that he backed out of a driveway and he hit someone's mailbox, and he made Sam, who was our assistant coach at the time. I think you've met Sam.
Yep.
He made Sam go up to the door and give her some money for the mailbox.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna definitely need to bring that up. That is hilarious.
Oh, wow. So you've had the same coach the whole time, then I guess I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is his 40th year, I believe,
Wow.
coaching.
Go him. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. And we'll need a follow-up email from you, Frannie, about what he says about that mailbox. That's hilarious. So on the road trip, I think Laura, you said you guys didn't really have many spring break trips, but I know Frannie, you have some this year. I assume you've had some in the past. What are some maybe fun trips you've gone on, or touristy things you've gotten to do? Frannie first.
Well, so like my freshman year, we had COVID, and so we didn't actually get to really travel. We got hit pretty hard. We had a month right in the start of our season where it was completely cut off, and we didn't get to actually travel anywhere. But then the following year, we got to go to Georgia and then Florida. Georgia's probably one of the coolest places that we've traveled. Granted, I've only really traveled to Florida, Arizona, and then Georgia for the lead off, but I've never been to Georgia before. And so just getting to be there, getting to play is pretty cool. But playing in Arizona is probably my favorite because you get to play and the feel like the background, you have the mountains, and when you come from Iowa and everything is just flat and there's really not much else to it, it is amazing to be able to just look out in the outfield or right behind home plate and see mountains, and you're getting to play softball, the sport that I love, and then getting to see a beautiful landscape like that. It's very cool.
And maybe getting slightly warmer weather too.
Oh,
That
yeah,
probably doesn't
that
hurt.
also helps.
Laura, did you guys have, I know you had some NCAA tournament trips. Did you guys get to anywhere cool when you were there?
Well, like I said, we would take like weekend trips to Missouri. We'd take weekend trips to Kansas, and it was a little bit different back when we played, because we would actually go down and try to play Division II and Division I schools because of how seedings happened back then. It's a little bit different. Oh, it's a lot different than it happens right now. So we would go down to Oklahoma City, and we would play NAIA Division I schools, trying to, getting those wins, and that would then give us a better seeding, a better chance of hosting our regionals and things like that. We did get to go to Houston once. We did get to fly. That was like a regular season. And then my sophomore year, we had nationals out in Eastern Connecticut. So we flew out to Connecticut. So we flew a couple of times, but a lot of times we just drove, and didn't have those extended trips like they get to do now, where they're gone for like 10 days, 14 days, and play a ton of games in just a short period of time, which is really great that they get that many games in, but it can be really hard on their bodies as well and be very tiring.
Definitely hard on the body, and also probably hard to keep up with classwork, although hopefully some of that hits your actual spring break time. Speaking of classwork, let's talk about a little bit about academics. Frannie, what is your major currently? And then Laura, what is yours? Or what was yours?
I am actually a chemistry major, minored in math. So I completed that, I think, last year, my math minor, but yeah, I am a chemistry major.
Laura?
Frannie, that's awesome.
Thanks.
So I started, Frannie, I was going to, when I went into Central, I was also going to be a chemistry major until I took OChem. And I'm like, oh no, this is not what I am going to do. Then I also had at the time, who was not there anymore, he has passed, but Dr. Bosch was there, and he was the biology teacher. And at the time, I was thinking I wanted to go to PT school. So we had something called, oh God, what is my degree? You basically got to design your degree. I don't know if you still have that right now, but I did natural science. So I did a lot of the life science. I did behavioral science, so a lot of psych, a lot of sociology, and then applied arts. So it's basically a triple major. And that was things like anatomy, kinesiology, and things like that. And it was to prep to go to PT school, was my initial thought. I ended up going to cardiac rehab, which is what I did my master's work in. But then, lo and behold, I became a teacher because I was a TA during that time. And then I became a teacher. So it was a long kind of winding road, but that's kind of my path from Central.
Very cool. So this is the call of women in STEM. I love that.
Yes.
Frannie, for you, since you're in the thick of it right now, what maybe as you've experienced Central College, what has been just your experience there with academics and getting to do that while you still get to play a sport you love?
Something that I really love about Central, and because it is a little bit of a smaller school, it is a private college. I have grown great relationships with my professors. They've had years and years of softball players come through their door, and I'm just another one of them. But something that I really love about my classes, and even since I was a freshman, I've been able to grow a relationship with my professors, and I feel incredibly comfortable to go ask them questions or even just have a conversation. And so that, like Laura said, OChem was not easy. It definitely kept getting harder from there on, but there's some really great professors here, and what's great about this school is that the more you get, at least for my major, the more you go into your major, the smaller the class sizes are. Like I have seven classmates in one of my classes right now. I've been under 10 for a lot of my classes lately, and so you really get to grow a connection with those professors, and it does hold you to a higher standard because they know whether you show up or whether you're not, and they know if you participate in class or not. And so just even the nature of it, it helps push you to really do your best in those courses because you are growing that relationship, but also there aren't many of you, and so they do see that. And I love that about Central, and we have an open door policy. They have that, and whenever their door is open, you can go and talk to them about anything, whether that's homework or exams or anything like that. And so that I love that about Central, and that's one of the reasons that I chose this place to not only pursue softball but also my degree. So.
And Laura, when you look back at it and you made the decision to go to Central, what do you think you learned during your time there, or just being a student athlete there, that has helped you once you got out into the working world?
I would say being 30 years out, and I think, Frannie, you will see this next year, in the year after, is that a lot of the things that I went through at Central, whether it was on the softball field, with my teammates, in classes, and I love that Frannie used relationships, I think, because that is one of the key words when I think of my time at Central that sticks out is relationships with classmates, with professors, with just people around campus, the lunch lady, knowing your name when you came in. So I actually, a lot of the things that I've had to experience in 30 years post undergraduate, whether it is a serious illness or whether it is a death of a family member or whether it is my coaching that, I've had to rely on some of the things that I learned in my classroom. I use so much of what we went through on the team, lessons that we learned. I sincerely believe that the 4 years after high school are probably the most formidable years in developing who you are going to be as an adult. And it surprises me, even at 50 plus years old, that I often think back to what happened at Central or an obstacle that we overcame or a success that we had and how that influences how I parent and how I teach, and how I interact and have relationships with other people. So I think it's a really great gift. And Frannie, I'm super excited for you that, you're going through this. And I've loved watching Frannie over the years. I remember going to a game her freshman year, and I'm like, who is that? Because she is on fire, and like you can't take your eyes off of her when she's on the field, no matter where she's at. So I'm glad you're experiencing that, Frannie, and I've seen you grow over the years. And I think when you're 50 plus years old and someone asks you about it, I think you will kind of have similar answers because of experiences that you've had.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, so now let's get into some story time. So the first thing I'll have you share is your funniest or craziest but appropriate story. And Laura, you already told us about the mailbox, so you have to come up with a new one, another funny story. So Laura, you can kick it off, and then Frannie, you can follow up with yours.
So Larry asked me, I talked to Larry a little bit today, who is our sports information director, who has been around since I've been there and obviously is still there today. And he's like, what stories are you going to tell? And I'm like, oh my gosh, Larry, there's so many that I want to tell. But things were different when we traveled. And so I said, one of the things that I remember is we went to Oklahoma City and we were playing some games and we went in to have breakfast, and they were totally understaffed and not prepared for 3 vanfuls of women to come in and have breakfast before their games. And so Kelly McDonald, who was our first baseman, who was my same age, and I decided that we would go back into the kitchen to the cooks and volunteer our services to make pancakes. And so there we were with all of our uniforms on, and we're sitting back there making pancakes with the cooks in Oklahoma City, just so that our team could eat breakfast. And a couple of the other teammates, they went and grabbed the orange juice, they grabbed the milk, they grabbed the coffee. So we basically started serving the whole restaurant at this point, did get our breakfast done and did get out in time in order to get to our game. But in our full Central uniforms, we just were like, well, needs to get done. So we took pictures with the cooks that were back there. They were so appreciative of us coming back and helping them make pancakes. So that's an appropriate story that we can tell.
There you go.
There were some stories about maybe some mattresses ending up at the pond. So there was some of that. There's some mattresses that ended up on Coach's yard that belonged on campus. But those are some things that we share at camp sometimes in private.
Okay, I won't ask any questions, but I do. How good were the pancakes? Good. They taste good.
Yeah, we are great pancake makers.
Good, amazing. Frannie, how about you?
Well, I can't say that we ever made pancakes or threw mattresses out on the coach's lawn. But there is one that sticks in my mind that um is pretty memorable. So I think it was my sophomore year, and I believe it was in Georgia. We were flying to Georgia, and our flight kept getting delayed to get there, and it had been about 4 or 5 hours. And then we finally got on the plane to go to Georgia. We finally got there, and it was very, very late at night. And we needed our vehicles to get to the hotel. And we got there, and it was so late that the place that was supposed to give us our vehicles was, I guess, closed. And I don't know if Laura can relate to this, but when coach gets upset, you just know that something's going to happen. And so we got all our luggage, and we're chugging along, and we're trying to figure out where to go. And so we're the people that are telling coaches, like, we don't have a vehicle for you, so you're going to have to wait 3 or 4 more hours until somebody gets here. And so we're all set in camp in this building that has all the vehicles, and we're all laying our stuff out, trying to figure out how we're going to sleep or do whatever we need to do for the next 2 or 3 hours. And you can see coach's face is so red, and he's walking up and down these aisles trying to figure out, like, who does he need to talk to. And by that point, he finally found somebody, and we start to go to this garage where our vehicles are. And then we get there, and there's nobody there. And so we're starting to set up camp there. Like, we're going to have to be laying here on the curb for about 3 or 4 hours. And everybody's looking up, how far is our hotel? We can probably walk there. And I don't know, coaches, well, I don't know what he did, but he got somebody out there. And about an hour or so later, we were on the car, but we were all just laying, trying to set camp in a parking lot. And then I can't tell this story because I feel like you have to be there, but it was a story. It was definitely a crazy experience to, first of all, to have all those delays, but then to get there, and we thought we were going to be spending the night on the floor in a vehicle building, or the floor of a garage building. It was very crazy.
Yeah, the travel issues are always the worst, especially when you can't just like get an Uber because you're like, we have 30 people here. How do we get all of this?
It was not pleasant.
To kind of talk a little bit about, I think, how alumni and current players are connected. When Frannie was going through that, when the team was going through that, a lot of us alumni knew that, that, they had the delay, that they didn't have their travel, that they didn't have vehicles. So I think that's one of the things that I've really appreciated about graduating from Central and staying kind of connected, is that we knew that. Like, we were like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? We were so worried about them, and are they going to get to their spot on time for that? So I remember feeling for your team when I heard that all of that had happened.
That's awesome that you guys have that kind of connection through the years. I'm sure that's nice for you, Frannie, to think about or wonder about when you go out into the world and have to look for jobs, and you have those connections already kind of built in places. So those were funny or crazy stories, but let's talk about just your favorite memories. So you guys have obviously had lots of success during your time at Central on the team. And so maybe it's on the field, but maybe it's something just with the team in general. So what are your favorite memories? And Frannie, I'll have you start this one, and then Laura, you can follow up.
Well, something about my timeline here at Central is when I was a freshman, so this was the year right after COVID had really hit. And then the year before me, their season got completely cut off, right? And so when I got onto campus, COVID was still very much around. And so our season was not, just like everybody else's season, our season was not normal by any means. And there were plenty of struggles and roadblocks. Like, like I had said, prior to this, we had a whole month. We had just started practices. We were getting ready to play, and then we got hit with players getting COVID, and then we were shut down for about a month. And then we were still trying to make it through and trying to get through that season the best we could. So I believe my experience is completely different from those who come before me because we didn't have COVID, and just last year we finally got back to the standard that is Central softball. And like when you think of Central softball, you think that's a winning team. That's a team that makes a run every year. And the seniors last year, when I was a junior, none of us had ever really experienced the postseason. Not even really, we hadn't. And so what was really special about last year and what we're continuing to grow to get back to what it was is that we had to really rely on coach to help us get to where we wanted to go, which was make a postseason run. And what I think is really amazing is that not only me, but the seniors and then everybody else that we had on the team really trusted coach because he had been there before. We talked to past alumni to hear about what their experience was like and how they handled the postseason. And one of the best memories for me thus far is getting to hear our name called on the selection show, hearing that, first of all, we were going to host, but that we were even in it, and I can't even explain the stress and the worry that we were all feeling that day when the names kept getting called and Central wasn't one of them, and we were all just like, did we make it or did we not? And when we heard our name and then we heard that we were hosting, it was so much joy. And then just getting to experience what a postseason even was exceptionally memorable for me because I had never experienced it before. And that's what we want to do this year. Our goal isn't even to make it. Our goal is to make a run. And so that's something that I really think back to now because we had quite a bit of roller coaster my first 2 years here than the year prior or to when I had come to Central. But that selection show is really important to me, and I believe for a lot of the players who were on that team too, because we had finally done what every team before us had done before. And so yeah, I would say that's probably one of the most memorable moments for me is really starting to feel like this is what Central softball does, and then I finally get to experience this and hope to experience it again this year too.
Frannie, you guys have the selection show now where they do the video and all of that kind of stuff. So back in the day, we would all meet in the room, which was across from Gert's office, which you guys think that you guys use that office. Or actually, I think maybe it's where they take recruits now. It's in the field house. I don't know what it's used for right now, but we used to go in and all sit there, and we had to wait for a phone call. So there was no selection call or selection show. We all had to sit there and we had to wait and we had to wait. And coach was in the other office and he was waiting for a phone call. And then he would like come out of the office and we would all look at him like, do you know yet? And he's like, nope, we don't know yet. And so then he would go back in. And so that's how we would find out like if we made it, if we're hosting and all that kind of stuff. So I love how that has evolved for you guys, that it's really cool. The selection show thing is really cool, but that's how we used to do it. And I guess I'm on the other end of Franie, where when I came into Central, Central had already won one national. So they had the 88 national that they came off of. And I came in the fall of 89. Yep. And my spring of 90 was my freshman season. So they had just come off a national championship. I had really no idea like what that meant. We ended up going to nationals that year. And as a freshman, like you just don't remember anything. But it was in BV and we ended up third. And I didn't think anything of that. And we started our next season, and no one really thought we were going to do anything. We were very, very young. We had sophomores, a couple of juniors, and one senior that started that year. And we flew out to Eastern Connecticut, and Trenton State and Eastern Connecticut and us, and we're the three basically top teams. And when we went out there and to win our national championship by beating the number one team in the country that was there all year, which was Trenton at the time, and Eastern, they were like 1 and 2. That was really cool. But I think one of the most memorable was my senior year, and we were in Decatur, Illinois, and that's where nationals were that year. And Coach stopped at the mall, and he had a lady at the mall that was playing the piano. He had her play the Rose for us before we went to the championship game. So we had no idea we were stopping, and we were all in our uniforms, our white uniforms, and had her play the Rose for us at the mall. And then we all got back on the bus and we went out to the field, and they had to beat us twice. And so we were kind of in the driver's seat right there. And we were playing Trenton and we were winning. And I remember Coach coming out and talking to Emily, who was the pitcher at the time, Emily Grimes, and myself. And he's like, should we blow this one? He goes, should we throw this game so that we can play one more? And I just remember like crying on the field. And I was seriously going to say, yes, we should probably just play one more game. But I think that year was really cool, that surprise of him kind of thinking of that, that we experienced that, and then to then go on and win the national that year was kind of cool. So I want that for you guys so very much, because there's nothing like it. And what I saw last year with what the team was doing, and knowing who's on the field right now, knowing who you brought in, and knowing that you guys got a taste of it, I have no doubt at all that you guys are going to make a run, and you guys are going to make a deep run. And I'm ready for another national championship.
No, we want that too. But Coach tells that story a lot. And you guys probably don't know, but The Rose is a song that is incredibly special to Central Softball. And to hear an alumni that from way back, even talking about how important it was then, and it's something that we listen to, and it's an important song for us. And he has told that story plenty of times, and I love hearing it from alumni themselves, because it just shows how really special the stuff that we do here and the stuff that we have here. And it's also cool to hear that we still have it, like that song has been around for so long, and to hear that you got to listen to that before you went on to win a national championship is so amazing. And I hope at some point this season we get to experience something so memorable like that, because that is like a song that hits a special place in all of our hearts, even now, like the way it did for you guys.
It is, I think, one of the really cool things that ties your generation to all the generations that came between my generation and your generation. I think when you guys did High Hopes. So we used to do High Hopes, but we used to do High Hopes with a boom box with a tape, and it was so slow to what you guys sing it today, which is really cool. And I think you guys still listen to When You Put Your Heart in It. So that was 30 plus years ago as well that we had that one around. And I think you actually, I know that you guys have some of your warm-up music. It was the same stuff that we had on our warm-up tape 30 plus years ago as well. And I don't know, I just think that's one of the things when you come back as an alumni that makes you feel connected to the team. I think that the number tradition of knowing who had your number, and having a vested interest in who has your number now. I mean, I was number 15 way back when. And so I don't know who's number 15 right now. So I'm so excited to find out who that's going to be. But all of the 15s before I have known and have a relationship with. And I just think it's one of the really, really cool things about Central softball. I think that's one of the really cool things about playing at Division III as well. I think you get that. It's just a different feel. I think when you play at a smaller school and you're playing it because you love it. You're not playing it necessarily because you're being paid to play it. And that's my bias, and I understand that, but I really think there is something to that.
Well, I think on any recruiting trip for a Central prospect, they just need to play him this part in the podcast and be like, here's what you'd be walking into. And I don't know how you would say no to that. I feel like I want to join the team right now.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to get to experience this.
That's awesome. So you kind of started leading us in there, Laura. Let's wrap this conversation up by just talking about Division III and your experiences in D3 and the future of it. So first off, Franie, I'll have you kick it off this one. What does it mean to you to be a D3 student athlete? You know, there's a lot of things that go into that. You get great academics at a school like Central. You might be able to be involved in some other things outside of your sport. So overall, what has your experience meant to you?
You know, I was thinking about this question today, and it's hard for me to really explain what it means to be a D3 athlete. But what I do know is that the phrase student athlete that's what it is. It's student athlete. And coaches are very good about making sure we know that there is a life after college. There is a life after softball. We don't get to play softball the rest of our lives like some of us probably wish we could. And so they make it really important. They make a note to make it important that our academics matters. And what I'm sure Laura can attest to is that what we are outside of the field shows just as much what our team is like. And so something that coaches really harp on is that who we are outside of the field is just as important as who we are when we're stepping on the field. There's really not a big difference about the type of character that we have. And so to be a D3 athlete and getting to really focus on both of those is really important to me because, like Laura said, we don't get paid to do this, right? And so we're here because, first of all, our education matters, but also we're here to play the sport that we love. And I think that you can see that with really any D3 athletes because whether it's D3 or D2 or D1, you're getting to play in college, and not many people get to do that. But what sets apart D3 is that players really go there to get this experience because we don't get some of the luxury that other schools do, which is okay. But getting to really take it in and know that we're here to be students, but also to be athletes it's great. Being a D3 athlete, I wouldn't change anything, no matter what it could have been. I'm grateful to be a D3 athlete because I've learned a lot of lessons, and I've learned how hard you really have to work to make both work, to make both of them important. So yeah.
Great. And Laura, how about you?
So I've had a little bit more time to reflect since I have graduated on what it means to be a D3 athlete. When I was at Central, I also was very, very blessed with some people that had a vested interest in women's athletics. Being a woman athlete, you know, I have to throw Caitlin Clark in here right now. What she's doing right now for women's athletics is absolutely amazing. But it hasn't always been that way. And I can't say that it hasn't been that way at Central because women athletes, ever since I stepped foot on the campus, have been respected, I would say, the same as male athletics have been. And that's because of people like Ken Weller, who was, kind of an architect in Division III, but he was he was my president at Central, and he was at our games, and he would come up and talk with us. And Dean Giles, Marjorie Giles, also another phenomenal person in women's athletics and in Division III as well, and Coach Skipper. And I had some amazing people that were in our corner as women athletes and as softball players. They were at all of our games, and it was amazing. So I think my perception, or my reflection, I think is a better word, of being a Division III athlete is it's a division where you can really have it all. And did we work hard? Yes. Did we have to do the weight training with Coach Johnson? Absolutely not. Sorry, Frannie. We were kind of more on our own weight training, but we did work hard. So we worked outside of season, even though it wasn't a required practice. We were competitive. We could play we played Division II and Division I schools, and we were beating them. So you can be competitive, but also being a science person, and Frannie, you probably had this happen. Like, I had labs sometimes between 3 and 4, and practice started at 3:00. And so sometimes I had to be late because I had to be at lab between 3 and 4, and it was okay. And it's like coaches encouraged that. And I guess that's my biggest thing about Division III. And when I talk to some of my high schoolers and they want to go on and play basketball, or they want to play volleyball, and they're kind of trying to make those decisions, I'll talk with them about that. It's like, consider playing Division III. It's not less competitive than some of the others. I know you can't say I'm on scholarship, but you can really have it all. You can graduate in 4 years. You can have an amazing degree. You can be extremely competitive, and you are going to build relationships with people stronger, not just the people on your team, but the people that are in your classes, your smaller size classes usually, that are going to last you a lifetime. So I am a huge proponent, because obviously I played at a Division III, but I am a huge proponent of everything that Division III can be. And I am very excited with what I'm seeing with women's athletics in Division III as well. And I'm excited the trajectory that is on. And Frannie, I'm grateful that you are a person that is leading that charge in that trajectory as well.
I love that we have a voice like that in the high school system, in the coaching and high school system, because you're right, there are some misconceptions or opinions about Division III. I've worked in college athletics for almost a decade now, so I love that there's someone in the high school realm who can correct those things or advise students on what Division III actually is. So appreciate you, Laura.
Thank you.
My last question for both of you is the future of Division III. So once again, you kind of teed me up perfectly there at the end, Laura, but this podcast is part of our 50th anniversary. So we're 50 years down of Division III and many, many more to come. So Laura, I'll have you start this one, and Frannie, you can close this episode out. But what do you see, or what do you hope to see for the future of D3?
This is a hard one. I think college athletics right now is changing rapidly, and I don't have an opinion yet necessarily if I think it's for the better or not. I know there's a lot of things that go on with the transfer portal. I know there's a lot of things that go on with NIL deals. I like that Division III doesn't necessarily have that piece as much. I mean, people transfer. There are Division III NIL deals, but I think it's a lot of times Division III athletes play for the joy of playing and realize that athletics is part of their life. It is not their entire life. It does not have to define the person they are. So they could succeed on the field, or they might fail on the field for that game, but that doesn't define them as a person. They're still going to go to their class. They're still going to ace their test. They're still going to have dinner at the cafeteria. They're still going to laugh with their friends. I think that's a joy of Division III athletics, and not being as all-consuming maybe as a Division II or a Division I athlete. So my hope for Division III is that we can keep that athletics is part of who you are, and it's a wonderful part of who you are, and it's a wonderful 4-year experience that is going to teach you so much. I honestly believe athletics at high school and athletics at college are probably the best classroom that you can ever have, but it's not you. It's not who you are. It's going to make you the person. It's going to be a part of making you the person who you are.
All right. And Frannie, what do you see?
Well, hearing you speak, Laura, it's like I can hear Coach saying that to us, because that's that stuff he says that to us all the time, that like failure on the field doesn't mean failure as a person. It doesn't mean that you can't go to class and succeed there. He says that all the time, that failure in that moment doesn't mean failure as a person. And I do agree with you. College athletics is changing, and I believe it's for both the better, and also I'm sure there are also some cons to that as well. But I also agree that D3 is really kind of its own special thing, because you're right, we don't get some of the luxuries as some D2 and D1 schools. But those that play D3 really are playing for the joy of it. And I agree, college is something you should really experience. I've really enjoyed my 4 years, almost 4 years here at Central. And I would hope that D3 athletics continues to be that way, to be an experience for people to play the sport that they love, but also to figure out what their future is going to look like. Because like I said before, athletics doesn't carry you, not all the time. For some, obviously it does. Athletics doesn't always carry you throughout your lifetime. And what I love about softball is that like you said, it is a classroom. Coach really tries to teach us what the real world is going to be like. Things aren't always going to be easy. Things aren't always going to go your way. You're going to fail at some things. You're going to hear no. You're going to fail an exam, and it's just the way that you respond that's going to help you in the future. And so I think D3 athletics really gets you to see that, because you're really in the thick of it. You're a student and you're also an athlete, but you're getting to really enjoy and experience both being just a student, but also being an athlete. And it is a great way to set you up for what they would call the real world, right? Because when you get a job, when you apply for a job, somebody's going to say no, but that doesn't make you a failure, right? So it's just, I would hope that D3 continues to be that for people, to be something that they can just enjoy and experience, because that's what it's like for us here. I know that's what it's like for me. I get to really pursue something that I want to pursue in terms of my academics, but this is an experience that I never could have dreamed of, getting to play softball at such a competitive college. And I've learned a lot, and some of it was hard to go through. Obviously, like it's always going to be a roller coaster, but I think D3 really exemplifies that, because you are playing for the joy of it. Like that's really what it is. You want to play to play, and there's nothing more to it than that. And I really hope D3 continues to be that. I know that things change and things evolve, and sometimes it's for the best, sometimes it's for not. But if it does evolve, I hope that D3 still continues to be an experience that is a balance between both being a student and an athlete, because I think it's important to, before you go into the real world, to experience what it's like to be a student and then to be an athlete, because there are different lessons there. So, yeah.
Thank you both so much for joining me today. I have had the best time hearing your stories. I love how involved you still are, Laura. So it made this even more fun that you can chime in on a lot of the discourse of what's going on these days. Franie, your season gets underway in just a couple of days. So best of luck this year. Hopefully you will be the next national champion for Central College. I would love to see that at the end of the season. You get to take a trip down to Texas and win that. So good luck this year.
Thank you so much. And thank you for asking me to do this. It's a really good honor.
And Franie, I'm just letting you know that I saved a couple personal days so that I can go watch you at nationals. So
that's what I love to hear. We'll be there.
There you go.
To everyone listening, thanks for tuning into this episode of Small Talk. We post new episodes every week. To follow along with everything Division III, you can find us on social media at NCAA D3 or NCAA DIII. Make sure to join the conversation with us all year long by using the hashtag DIII50. Have a great day, and we'll see you for some more Small Talk next week.